What is your heuristic around effect sizes?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think in the Cohen paper, the one that has all these effect sizes and benchmarks, there's a really clear point of consulting your literature about what is actually a practically useful effect size. Then Cohen gives you a bunch of different like standards, but to an earlier point you raised, the literature that we're working with, we can't just go and say, "Oh, this looks like a pretty good practical effect size for something." It's just not there. You're kind of left inventing the wheel a little bit in terms of what an effect size should be. This year, not to open another can of worms, we used the Bayesian framework. And what's really, I just like it because it's really flexible, among other things. And it gives you a posterior of what all these possible values could be, right? Let's say we want to know the effect of loosely coupled architecture, pretty much how contingent your team is on other teams, the dependencies between teams, and burnout. Say we want to understand that relationship. We get a beta weight that tells us pretty much the strength of that relationship. There's a bunch we could look at to sort of understand how well loosely coupled architecture explains burnout. R squared's a good example of that. Mean square error, root mean square error. AIC, BIC, maybe. No, that wouldn't be that great. But another thing you could do is you could look in the Bayesian framework at the pretty much a posterior of what plausible values of that beta weight is. And you could ask yourself, how many of these predictions or estimates of what the value actually is are in an area that's essentially equivalent to zero? So I think it's called the region of practical equivalence, is what some people call it. So we sort of just say, if the effect is between, in this example, on a 10-point scale, negative 0.2 and 0.2, or negative 0.1 and 0.1, it's really not doing anything. Like we might, because we have 3,000 people in the survey, we'll probably see statistical significance. But so much of that is in a region that you wouldn't tell a practitioner to waste their time trying to do this because the gains that they would receive from the amount of work they would have to do are probably small. So we try to look at the effects that are well outside that we're considering the region of practical equivalence, which we make up and come up with on our own. And kind of just because we don't have a lot of guiding lights. It's just sort of, I think most people would agree that you're not getting much out of this if it only gives you this much value kind of thing.